All right, if you've been watching the Edmonton real estate market, you've probably felt it. Something's changing. The question is, what? Is this a good thing for buyers? A bad thing for sellers? Well, the numbers for October 2025 are in, and they've got a story to tell. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, this is the big one, isn't it? I mean, after the crazy market we've seen, is this finally the cool down everyone's been talking about? Or is it just, the usual fall slowdown? To figure that out, we've got to follow the clues in the data. And trust me, the first clue is a real eye-opener.
Just look at that number, 30.7%. Let that sink in. What is that? That's the jump in the number of homes for sale compared to this time last year. A third more homes. It's a massive shift. And honestly, this one number pretty much sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so let's start with a big picture. I'm going to walk you through the 4 key stats that give us a snapshot of the whole market in October. First up, sales. A little over 2,000 homes sold in October. Now that's definitely a slower pace than the frenzy we saw last year, and it's also down a bit from September. That's not a huge surprise, right? It's that classic seasonal slowdown as we head into the colder months. All right, next up, new listings. And this is where things get really interesting, because while sales are cooling off, the number of new homes hitting the market is actually heating up. We're talking over 3,300 new listings. That's a big jump from last October. So it seems like a lot of homeowners are thinking, okay, now's the time to sell. So you'd think with fewer sales and more listings, prices would be tanking, right? Well, not so fast. The average price for any type of home is holding steady at just under $455,000. It's pretty much the same as September, and it's still up a bit from where we were a year ago. Interesting, huh? And this final number, this is what happens when you put it all together. You've got fewer sales, a lot more listings, and boom, your inventory grows. We ended October with over 6,600 homes on the market. If you're a buyer, listen up, because that means one thing for you: choice. Way more choice than you've had in a very long time. And this quote from Darlene Reed, who's the chair of the Realtors Association of Edmonton this year, really hits the nail on the head. She talks about balanced conditions. That's the key takeaway here. This isn't some big crash. It's the market finding its footing again, becoming healthier, really, for both buyers and sellers. Okay, we're talking about balance. But what's that doing to prices? Before we dig into that, we got to quickly talk about how we even measure price. Because believe it or not, there are a couple of different ways to look at it.
So on one hand, you've got the average price. That's the $455,000 we mentioned. It's simple. You take the total value of all the homes sold and divide by how many there were. Easy. But it can get a little wonky if a couple of mansions sell. On the other hand, you have the MLS Home Price Index, or HPI. Think of this one as the smart price. It tracks the value of a typical home, so it filters out those extreme highs and lows. It gives you a much truer sense of what's happening in the market. And for October, that HPI benchmark price was $418,500.
Look, at the end of the day, real estate all comes down to one thing: supply and demand. It's like a seesaw. So let's actually look at the charts and see how that balancing act is going in Edmonton right now. Okay, so this is the demand side of our seesaw. You can see right away that sales, they're down from the absolute frenzy of last October. No question, things have cooled off. But, and this is important, over 2,000 sales in a month is still pretty solid. The demand is still there, it's just not frantic. Now let's look at the other side of the seesaw, supply. And look at that, the trend completely flips. New listings are way up compared to last year. So right as buyer demand is kind of taking a little pause, the number of homes for sale is accelerating. You see the dynamic?
And this chart, this is the result of those two things happening at once. Softer demand, more supply, and you get this huge jump in the total number of homes on the market. This right here, this is that 30.7% increase we talked about at the very beginning. If you take one thing away from this, it's this chart. This is the story of the Edmonton market right now.
All right, so that's the 30,000-foot view. But the Edmonton market isn't one single thing, right? What's happening with detached houses can be totally different from condos. So now let's zoom in and break it down by the different types of homes.
So what's everyone buying? Well, no big shocker here. The single-family detached home is still king of the castle, making up 60% of all the sales. After that, you've got apartment condos coming in at 16%, and then row homes and semi-detached are pretty close behind.
Okay, let's start with detached homes. You can really see the whole market story right here in miniature. Sales? Down. But, and this is the kicker, prices, they're not.
In fact, the average price actually went up a tiny bit from last month and is still higher than last year. The trade-off is that it's taking a bit longer to sell, around 38 days.
Now for semi-detached homes. It's a pretty similar vibe with sales slowing down, but wow, look at the prices. Even with a small dip from September, the average price is up more than 5% from last October. That is some serious strength. This part of the market is really holding its value.
Okay, now here's our outlier, row and townhomes. This is the one and only category where we're actually seeing average prices dip below last year's levels, down about 3.5%. Sales have dropped off more sharply here too. So it looks like this segment is feeling the effects of the changing market the most.
And last but not least, apartment condos. Now, these do take the longest to sell. We're looking at 50 days on average. But check this out. Just like the semi-detached places, prices are up over 5% compared to last year. What does that tell us? It suggests that people are really looking for those more affordable ways to get into the market, and that's driving prices up.
Whew, okay, that was a lot of numbers. But numbers are just numbers, right? The real question is, so what? What does all this mean for you, whether you're looking to buy a home or sell one in Edmonton right now?
Okay, buyers, listen up. This is probably the best news you've heard in a while. The power dynamic is shifting. You've got more homes to choose from, you can take a breath and not feel so rushed, and you're not fighting off 10 other offers. It all boils down to this. You have more negotiating power. The ball is starting to roll back to your side of the court. Now for the sellers, take a deep breath. This is not a time to panic. The sky is not falling, prices are still higher than they were a year ago, and people are still buying houses. But the game has changed. You can't just stick a sign in the yard and expect a bidding war anymore. In this more competitive market, your home has to look its best, and more than anything, it has to be priced right from the very start.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. We've definitely seen the market move towards balance. But is this the new normal? The beginning of a long-term cooldown that leads to a full-on buyer's market? Or is this just the quiet before the storm of the spring market? Honestly, we'll have to wait and see. Thanks so much for tuning in to this month's breakdown. We'll catch you next time with the next set of numbers.